Welcome back to 3D Printing Architect. Today we are learning how to get that super fine, beautiful look to 3D prints using your stock 0.4mm nozzle. So this is my Ultimaker Cura. This is the slicer that I normally use, and we are going to just use our super cool straight benchy file. I mean, who doesn't like the little boat benchy? And we'll bring this over into our frame. So here's some of the settings that I use. If you want super fine and thicker walls, I'll do 0.15mm layer height. That's normally what I rock. Initial layer height, I sometimes, if I want that real good squish to get it to stick real well, I'll normally do depends on the print, but anywhere from 0.15 to 0.2. Line width, you want 4. That's always the width of the nozzle. Now, then you get down to your shell, wall, all this kind of information. So wall thickness, basically that's how many perimeters it's going to make. And in the benchy, it's just kind of a super fine, small model. So I just stick with 2 perimeters, which is 0.8mm, since it's double the nozzle. So our wall line count is 2, which is same as what I just said. Bottom layer thickness, this is what's going to be how many solid layers it's going to do before it starts to do our infill. So our top and bottom thickness, so that means how many layers it's going to be on top here and how many here on the bottom before it starts doing our pattern infill. So that I normally stick with 2 because you don't want to waste a huge lot of filament on this. Top layers, max top layers is 6. Bottom thickness. Okay, now we're going to go to infill. For me, when I want to print super nice and pretty, I kind of want a higher percent of infill. For the reason that it's going to give it more rigidity for printing the fine outside. So, I normally go about 20% infill density, and my infill pattern of choice is always grid. I love using grid. I really don't know why, it's just what I've gotten used to. So, I print in PLA, Matter Hackers PLA, and literally the best temperature. I always print it hot, so it's supposed to go to 195C to 210C, so I print it at 215C. A lot of people say not to do that, I do it anyway. So, build plate temperature, I don't really use a lot, because I have a PEI sheet. So, flow. Flow is very, very, very important for getting fine detail. So, your goal with flow is to get these exact measurements perfect. And getting the right, how do I want to say this? The right look. So, if that's what you want to get, how much filament is your nozzle going to put out? How much is your extruder going to push through the nozzle? So here, my regular flow is 100%. So that's just stock. That means it's going to go at just a regular percentile. Now, if I want a stronger part, but doesn't necessarily look as nice, I may go 125 or 150% flow. That's going to put out a lot more filament, so you got to remember, it's going to use a lot more plastic in the long end. But it should be stronger. And another thing, this infill pattern, one of the reasons I like to use grid is because it's stronger than lines, which is bone stock, and doesn't use that much more filament. Okay, so then we get initial layer flow. So I'd like my print to stick really, really well, especially if I'm doing like a 6-day print. You don't want to get to like the 3rd day and it start to peel up. It's awful. It sucks. So I do 125% initial layer flow, which means it's really going to squish that plastic out right around the base. So it's really, really, really going to push it out right around the base, and that will normally look pretty good. Then we come to speed, okay? Speed is very important for good looking parts. You have your printing speed, which I have set to 60. If I am going for looks, really good looks, I'm going to stay under 30 millimeters per second. Under. So 30 would be the max if I'm doing look good. Now wall speed, so this is when it's making these walls, I do even 15. And fill speed doesn't necessarily have to be super pretty, so I'll keep it at 30. Inner walls, I'll keep at 30, but number of slow layers. So this is really important for bed adhesion, and we'll talk about this in a later video. But bed adhesion is really important, because again, you don't want to do a 6-hour or 6-day print, sorry, not 6-hour, 6-day print, and it peel off. So, number of slow layers, the slower you go, because filament takes a little bit to cool. So it's really going to squish it down into that bed and really, really get it to stick well. So my travel, I get retraction distance. Yes, I have an action enable retraction, sorry. This is the Benchy, our Benchy model, just, bone stock. And support. I do not put support on the Benchy for the reason that all these little arches, like, let's zoom in a little bit, that arch, that right there is going to tell you, it's like a benchmark. It'll tell you if your printer is bridging really well. You also have your hole in the back. You also have this little overhead. These are things, if you get droops in here, anything like that, that is going to tell you a couple things. If you do get that, you're going to run a little bit slower, a little bit hotter, and you're going to want to go a little bit, little bit lower. So that's really going to stick it here. If it's crossing right here, it's going to really stick it here, and then it's going to stretch it across and stick right there. That's going to give you a really, really, really nice layer. So speed, we covered that. Travel, we covered that. Support. That's the reason I don't use support, is because for me, a Benchy is a test mark. It's telling me if I'm printing well. Build plate adhesion, we'll go over this in a different video. Yes, my printer right now is set up for dual extrusion, but I can still use a single nozzle, so I don't really need dual extrusion enabled right now. So this is my settings for printing the perfect Benchy. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments. Please hit subscribe and comment below and tell me what your favorite model is to use. That's it for 3D Printing Architect. We'll see ya next time.